is old as time, song is old as rhyme, from block to HOH. Alright, hello, my name is David Shire. That was an atrocity on the eardrums. I'm very sorry if you had your headphones plugged in for that. But needless to say, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be going over the latest episode of Big Brother. We're going to be talking about the good things that Kylan has been doing as head of household compared to previous HOHs, i.e. Frenchie. And we're going to be just going over the episode, see who get in contact with who, and see who's doing really well in this game, and just give an overall review of the episode. Now, tonight's episode I really loved. I think it started off kind of slow, but as it progressed throughout the episode, it was really entertaining, and it shows that this is a very extremely well cast season, and I'm just kind of excited still going into this next week to see where it goes from here. So starting off, we see Kylan. He is taking a very different approach to the head of household. Throughout the episode, he's very much more secretive and very much more low-key about his power and about what he's planning on doing as head of household. Now, I believe the reason why he's doing this is because I believe that he really wants to nominate Frenchie, and he does from the start. But because the Wildcard competition hasn't been played, at the beginning of the episode, he is definitely a little bit more scared. He was a little bit more holding his hands close to the chest. And after especially seeing the terrible reign of HOH Frenchie, Kylan is kind of adjusting to make sure that he doesn't make similar mistakes, which, you know, is totally fair. We also see a little bit of the vote hunt that happened post HOH competition. We heard about this on the live feeds. It wasn't really shown. Apparently a lot of people were looking out for the head of household, Christian, or for the 2 rogue votes. Christian even stated that it wasn't that he didn't really care that 2 rogue votes were cast, but he was just more pissed off that he didn't know that was going to happen. And ultimately, what I find about rogue votes is that as long as it's not like, you know, something that like drastically changes the game, like a rogue vote or 2 is not that big of a deal, and you shouldn't really be too worried about it. It was kind of interesting though to see the 2 reasons why the rogue votes happened. So with Derek F, it seemed that he only did it as a joke, and that's the thing with rogue votes, right? I mean, the reasoning for it was incredibly dumb. I don't know why Derek F thought of doing this. I think he's just, you know, having a good time. I'm not gonna you know, say too many bad things about Derek F's decision. He just seems kind of like a weird, chaotic character right now on the show, and he's still kind of trying to find his footing. But the more interesting person that we saw cast a rogue vote was Tiffany. And Tiffany explains that Frenchie asked her before the vote to throw a rogue vote on Travis. And I believe his plan was to throw the blame on Derek X. Now, the problem with that plan is that Derek F, Big D, throwing his rogue vote in the race as well, shows that, you know, somebody is pretty much trying to throw Derek X on the bus. It's one thing to have 1 rogue vote, but to have 2 is super weird. And also the fact that and it just doesn't work. Alyssa immediately says to Derek X that she thinks that somebody's trying to pin it on him. She tells the entire house that, and she's kind of more freaking out about that just in the live feeds in general. Apparently, well after all this stuff was just completely irrelevant, Alyssa was still looking for the 2 rogue votes. But ultimately, it just doesn't really matter. Tiffany's reasoning for following Frenchie's lead, though, was kind of like this weird test of Frenchie's abilities. People were a little bit worried that Tiffany was maybe drinking a little bit too much out of the Frenchie Kool-Aid. As we see later on in the episode, that is absolutely not the case. And I do like this move from Tiffany because of the fact that, you know, if somebody that has power, even though Frenchie was going out as HOH, he still had a lot of influence at the house at the time. So why not just, you know, do what he says, and what's it going to matter? It's just 1 rogue vote. You're basically guaranteeing yourself safety next week, or at least, you know, a chance to work your way into the bigger alliance. So I like this move by Tiffany, and I especially like the confrontation that Tiffany has with Frenchie afterwards, because as you know, Frenchie just can't keep his mouth shut, and he tells the house that he knows who the 2 rogue votes are, but he's not going to say anything. And Tiffany points out, well, Frenchie, like, why would you say anything at all if you know who the 2 rogue votes are. Like, I'm trying to cover my butt here. Like, why are you saying that you have this information over the house? Like, what is he doing? And I think what Frenchie is trying to do is he's trying to still show the house that he has some monocle of power, even though he's no longer HOH. Like, I'm trying to get myself into Frenchie's head a little bit, which is incredibly difficult, but I could see kind of what he's doing here. But ultimately, Tiffany calls him out in front of Brent and I believe Whitney, and it's just a really bad look for Frenchie. And Tiffany does play this incredibly well in this moment, and her asking Frenchie, like, well, who is it? Like, knowing full well that it was her that threw the rogue vote out there. And there's just a lot of things I'm loving from Tiffany in this moment. We also see a conversation between Xavier and Kyland, and the 2 of them seem to be kind of working together. And even though there's nothing really official there, Xavier seems to have a really good relationship with Kyland. We also see another clip of Xavier being pretty hilarious. Him ironing the paper towel, I thought was really great. Xavier is a really interesting character because so far it seems like he's doing a good job integrating himself with the house. He's doing a really good job at, being the fun guy. But he does intimidate some people. People understand that he's a smarter player. But I think he's just kind of laying low and playing dead up until this point, which is a little bit dangerous to do too long because you do need allies in the modern day Big Brother game, and you do need to be a little bit more active with your alliances. But for right now, it's working for Xavier, and every time that he's on the screen, I smile a lot. He's just a really fun person to watch. All right, next up, we also see that Travis did actually leave an impact on the show outside of him cross-dressing. We see that he had a conversation with Kyland, telling Frenchie the whole deal that Frenchie made on night 1. And this is very important because then Tiffany comes in and she reinforces that idea by telling Kyland that he can't trust Frenchie. And the edit makes it seem like very much so that this is very much Tiffany's move and helping move along Kyland. I think that ultimately Kyland probably would have nominated Frenchie anyway, given what Frenchie does throughout the course of the week. But it is nice to see Tiffany really taking charge of this move. It's also nice seeing that Travis did do something game-wise. He planted the seed, and then Tiffany watered that plant, and now it's growing into this beautiful queen seed that's taken root into Kyland's head. So it's really interesting to see that happen. We also see the HOH welcome to my HOH room segment. The one thing I only wrote here was that I really liked that I believe it was Hannah started singing along to the song, even though like in the house there's clearly no music, but I just thought that was kind of a funny note. Because that Hannah's probably a little bit more of a fan, but I'm not going to read too much into that. And then we see Kyland's unable to read his letter, and so Tiffany ends up reading the letter. And then we get this really nice emotional moment where Tiffany's really emotional and she's crying in Oz's lap, and then just kidding, you got bastard. Like, it's totally a mirage, and this is the thing I loved the absolute most. It was shade of Janelle from BB7. It was just I was dying of laughter knowing that Tiffany and Ozza were using like this emotional thing to get a little bit more alone time in the house. And what really killed me was near the end of the segment where they're both talking game. They're both saying that Tiffany's saying she wants Frenchie out. Ozza, interestingly enough, says that she's not quite sure if she wants Frenchie gone because Frenchie is part of her team, which we'll talk a little bit more of in the live feeds. But then all of a sudden, Derek X opens the door, and it was the most awkward thing I've ever seen. And I felt so hard for Derek in that moment. He was my spirit animal in this moment, where he walks in, sees a woman crying in another woman's lap, and he just kind of awkwardly just like gets out of the way. So good. I loved everything about this segment, and it was far superior than anything I've seen in Big Brother in the last 2 years. It was just excellent. It's something that I'm going to be replaying on repeat. It's going to be living rent-free in my head for the next couple of months, and I just cannot wait for that clip to upload on YouTube. I'm really excited about that. And yeah, so what's really interesting though is this idea of targeting Frenchie is really interesting. Frenchie right away basically blows up his entire game. He says F the Slaughterhouse to pretty much the entire house, goes through Whitney, talks to Brent, saying that you guys screwed me over. I'm not sure when Brent screwed Frenchie over, and I'm not sure when Whitney screwed Frenchie over. It seems that it was just kind of bad luck that that Kylan was the winner of the HOH, and maybe he should be more just been like, oh shoot, Kylan won HOH, maybe I should try to work on my relationship with Kylan. But that wasn't like Frenchie's MO. He does end up talking to Kylan a little bit later, trying to get a read on Kylan, and Kylan's is a very uncomfortable conversation, and one that I love seeing on the show, where Frenchie's paranoia, you can just see it in his face. He has like one hand here, and he's just bug-eyed looking at Kylan, while Kylan just he's like, well, who are you thinking about getting rid of? And Kylan's like, there's so many people, there's like other targets. I want to stick with the numbers. And Frenchie's just sitting there, and it's like his eyes are about to bust a vein, and so, but Frenchie does give an interesting point, and one point that's been brought up a lot in these last couple of years, where he tells Kylan that he is a big threat in this house, and that he could use him as a shield. And Brittany later on brings up the point that there are duos in this house. There are Christian and Alyssa, who are still seen as a duo, even though not romantic. I should be very clear on that, because I don't believe it's romantic. And also Brent and Whitney, which is also not romantic. And this would be an interesting week to go after one of those duos, especially Brent and Whitney, because I do believe Brent is a bit of a threat going down the line. However, the problem is that Frenchie has proven himself to be a really bad ally. And when you're playing the game of Big Brother, it's okay to be a bad ally. It's okay to do selfish things and do self-interested things, but you have to be really low key on that. You can't be, you can't be saying F you to your alliance 2 seconds, when you're not even on the block, the second you're in trouble. The second Frenchie even thought that he was going on the block, he's like, F you to the Slaughterhouse. And you cannot be doing that, because you're not going to get any sympathy. And you become such a big target that getting rid of you in the house actually does pose a little bit of benefits. You maybe are seen as the house hero for doing this whole thing and taking out Frenchie for everybody. Now, it is a little bit dangerous for Kylan, because I do believe that the Slaughterhouse doesn't really see Kylan as one of the top guys. I think Brent, Whitney, probably even Christian and Alyssa are a little bit higher on the pecking order than Kylan is, and Kylan it would be in Kylan's best interest to eventually go after them. But also getting rid of Frenchie now would appease them enough that I don't think Kylan's going to be touching the block anytime soon. And it's just kind of this weird, interesting scenario, because Frenchie is right. He is a big target. People will want to get rid of him. But Frenchie is such a self-interested player, and he's so transparently that way, that getting rid of him does make a lot of sense. You'd rather surround yourself with players that what they're going to do on any given moment, and Frenchie on any given moment can do anything, and that's what makes him so terrifying, and why you don't want to keep somebody like that around. Anyway, you probably figured that out on your own, but it is an interesting conversation, and one that comes up time and time again in these reality shows. Do you keep the threat around and go after a sub target that might be target you later, or not? And I think Kylan is making the right decision here. I think there's some things he could be doing better, which we'll talk about a little bit more in the live feed update portion of this. But it is a very interesting situation. All right, next up we see the Wildcard competition. I'll just kind of run through this very quickly. Basically, it was just a color spotting competition. Sarah Beth did really well in this competition, and I think that Sarah Beth is one of these people that that the edit is kind of implying that you should look out for. Sarah did a really good job with the quick memorization portion, and there's a lot of challenges like these in Big Brother, so to see that Sarah is really good at these kind of weird like mental comps could make her into a power player in the future. I wouldn't be surprised if she ends up getting an HOH in the future if she sticks around long enough, and maybe a couple. And Sarah, also unreported, is that Sarah and Kyland are super close, and which kind of goes to explain the situation, because she wins the wildcard competition, and then the twist this week is that she can switch teams with somebody on Kyland's team for safety. And so you're given this dilemma, okay, well, I'm going to royally piss off somebody if I do this. So Sarah ultimately decides not to. She says she feels good with Kyland, and the truth is, in the house, it's not really been shown on the show, but her and Kyland are two really close allies. I believe they've made a final 2 together, and so yeah, like this is absolutely the right move for Sarah Beth. She's also been working with Tiffany and Claire off and on again, so like, why would you even risk pissing one of them off? Especially Tiffany, because Tiffany's kind of a terrifying player, and I wouldn't want to piss Tiffany off this early in the game. So I believe Sarah Beth made the right move, and we're just going to kind of move along with that. Wasn't anything... the competition itself was fine. You know, it's nice that we were able to follow along a little bit at home. And then that's pretty much all I got to say on that. All right. So we already talked about Frenchie being out on the Slaughterhouse. Yeah. And... all right. Only other things I wrote here is that Brent... just a few little notes. Brent's whole thing seems to be that he's really focused on planes. I don't know if you're catching this, but it seems like every week Brent's not really saying anything game related. He's more like making plane puns, and that's kind of his role for the editors. So I think the editors are kind of subtly telling us that they don't really see Brent as maybe that big of a strategic threat going down the line. Yeah, and ultimately they have a nice little segment where everybody in the house has a meeting with Kyland. Kyland did this pretty much like they showed in the show. They fast forwarded it, but Kyland took the time to meet with everybody one-on-one. He gave them like a 15-minute presentation in the house. And it was really funny to see every single person throw Frenchie under the bus. And it just goes to show that, like, if you're going to say you're going to be a big threat in the house and that's the reason to keep you, you have to be a little bit more like Brett from Big Brother 20. Because Brett from Big Brother 20, the reason why he was able to get away with this argument saying, like, look, I'll be a bigger threat, keep me in the house, is because he was pitching to his allies who had the numbers. And he was a good ally. He was loyal to level 6, and Frenchie's not loyal to anybody but Frenchie, and everybody knows that. You know, you got to be a little bit more secretive. And I think that's what the real difference between Frenchie and somebody like Tiffany in this house is, that Tiffany is making a lot of self-interested moves. Getting rid of Frenchie is a very good thing for her specifically. And then kind of creating a house targets between Brent and Whitney is very good for her. But she's being very subtle about it. You know, she's convincing people in subtle ways, saying like, you look, Island, you can't trust Frenchie, you know, trying to plant those seeds. And that's kind of what you need to do in the Big Brother house, because in the Big Brother house, seeds have time to grow. And Tiffany understands that about the game, and that's what she's doing pretty well so far. Other things to note, I think that's pretty much it for the episode, all the notes that I've taken. Kyland's speech about getting rid of Frenchie was pretty interesting. Also, it was interesting to see Brittany just come right after Kyland's throat near the end. It was really kind of like, whoa, like Brittany's really pissed about this. And I thought Kyland gave a good enough reason, but, you know, like, emotions run high in the Big Brother house. And that's just kind of what happens. And that's pretty much it for the live feed updates for the live show. We're going to jump into live feed spoilers now. If you want to hop off here, just like, comment, and subscribe. If you want to support the channel, check us out on Patreon at David Shire. And yeah, that'd be really cool. But anyway, moving on to the live feed spoilers. So it seems that... ultimately, the veto's already been played, and the winner of the veto was Derek X. And Derek X is planning to not use the veto on Frenchie. The funny thing is that Frenchie promised Brittany, if he had won the veto, that he was going to use it on Brittany because he doesn't believe that she deserves to be a target, and he sees this, him being on the block in the first place, as like a sign that he should go back and see his family. And he's told people crazy things like if there is a battle back or anything like that, he's just going to be like, no, can't do it. I'd rather leave the house right now than to do this. And honestly, all this makes me say goodbye, Frenchie. Like, it's been fun for the first 2 weeks. You started the season off with a bang, but this whole hero act kind of thing is something that just irritates me to no end in modern reality television shows. And like, I get it, you know, you want to be the hero of your own story, but Frenchie just, I don't know, he's just delusional. Like, I don't know what he's like. It's just, it's crazy. It's crazy to watch. I'm tired of it, and I'm ready for Frenchie to go. Also, I was seeing some things on the live feeds where Frenchie had a conversation with Derek X, and it was a weird conversation where he basically told Derek X that he really thought that Derek X was a good person, but, you know, he's not like a good player or anything. And this whole conversation made Derek X really emotional. And I don't know what Derek X was thinking in the moment, but if that were me, I'd be like, hey, Frenchie, you're not a good player, like, either. Like, you're getting voted out week 2. Like, you're gonna lecture me on being a good player? I've won just 2 veto competitions, bro. Like, it just came off to me watching it back is super condescending, and I'm tired of Frenchie. I'm ready for him to go. It's been real, but the French train has finally gone off the rails, and I'm excited to see what happens in the coming weeks. There still is, I believe, 2 sides to the house. There's still the Brett and Whitney side with the Slaughterhouse and all these kind of intermingling parts, you know, Xavier, Kyland, and some others being attached to the Slaughterhouse, Christian, Alyssa. And then there's the other side with Tiffany, Derek X. Not sure where Ozza's going to go, because Ozza campaigned a little bit for Frenchie this week, which could come back to backfire on her. The main reason Ozza has campaigned at all for Frenchie is because Frenchie is on her team. Which I think is a huge mistake by Ozza. You know, like, you just gotta let that ship sail. You know, like, it's gone. It's away from the harbor. You let it go, and then maybe you just get a little arrow, light it on fire, and shoot it at the ship too, because you just need to get as far away from that as possible. And that's what Brent, that's what Whitney, that's what all of pretty much the entirety of the Slaughterhouse has been doing. So the fact that Ozza's really kind of like holding on is a little bit weird, but it is something to report. And yeah, so Tiffany's kind of gathering her side, Brett and Whitney are kind of gathering their side. Frenchie's doing Frenchie things and just spilling the beans about everything. There's probably some other thing that he's done in the last 20 minutes or so since this video started. And yeah, but it'll be interesting to see as the 2 sides of the house, the Slaughter side of the house and the non-Slaughter side of the house, continue to battle throughout this week. And even though Frenchie's going to be gone, and even though that kind of element of craziness is going to be gone from the season, I do still have a lot of hope for this season. You know, Sarah Beth has been proving to be a little bit more of a player. She's gone to her team. Kylan ratted out the Slaughterhouse to Sarah. He told her everything about it. And there's this one clip where Sarah Beth goes to her team, which consists of Alyssa, Kylan, and one other person. It is Alyssa, Christian, and Derek F. And not Derek F. Who was the third person in the Kings? Sarah Beth, Alyssa, Christian, and Xavier. Yeah, she went to all 4 of them. The three of those people, of course, being in the Slaughterhouse. And she was like, yeah, so I heard that there was potentially an alliance in this house that I wasn't a part of. Like, Frenchie told me that there's been an alliance. So she's kind of taking the grave that Frenchie's already dug for himself and just kind of like, you know, digging a little bit deeper on Frenchie. She also kind of uses the opportunity to say to her 4 people, like, look, we're good. Like, we are the 4 people. And she's kind of forming her own little king alliance herself and really trying to forge herself into that even more, which is really interesting. And so Sarah Beth also, I believe, is one to watch. Derek X, he's laying low. He won his second power of veto. He has definitely gotten a lot more respect in the house, and everything that Derek X was accused of the first week by Frenchie has basically evaporated because Frenchie has been so erratic that people are like, that's weird. Like, Frenchie's erratic, and we kind of believed him last week because he was in charge. But because Frenchie's not in charge anymore, maybe the things he said about Derek X wasn't true. And so that's very good for Derek X's game. We'll see as he kind of continues on. He's still kind of being under the tutelage of Tiffany, and we'll kind of keep an eye on him as the season progresses. Anyway, this was a very fun episode this week. It was very fun to talk to you about this. I hope you join me this upcoming Wednesday as we talk about that episode. And overall, I just hope that you guys have a wonderful day, and I will talk to you later.